Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're going to be tackling something I know a lot of you have been asking about, probiotics and IBD.
Yeah, it's definitely a hot topic.
It really is, and you've sent over a ton of research on it. So we're going to dig in, try to make sense of it all,
Right.
and hopefully uncover some of those aha moments along the way.
Sounds like a plan.
So to make sure we're all on the same page,
Yeah.
IBD. When we say those three letters, what are we actually talking about?
So IBD, it's basically a group of conditions that cause chronic, so long-term inflammation in your digestive tract.
Okay, so when you say inflammation, paint a picture for me. What's actually going on in the body?
It's like your gut, instead of, running smoothly, digesting things properly, it's like there's constant irritation and swelling.
Oh, that doesn't sound pleasant at all.
No, it's really uncomfortable at best, and at worst, it can be, really painful.
And from the research you sent, it seems like IBD is kind of an umbrella term, right?
Yeah, exactly.
There are different types, each with their own quirks.
Exactly. So the two most common types are Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis.
Okay. So those are the two big ones.
Right. And both involve inflammation, but they each have their own, ways of, I guess you could say, wreaking havoc on the digestive system.
Interesting. So it's like they're both villains, but with slightly different MOs.
Exactly. Yeah. They've got different ways of causing trouble.
Okay, so let's talk about those MOs, starting with Crohn's. What makes this type of IBD distinct?
So Crohn's is, if you think of your digestive system as like a map, right?
Okay, yeah.
Crohn's can pop up anywhere in that map from your mouth all the way down.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize it could affect that much of the digestive tract.
Yeah, it can affect any part of it. And the other thing about Crohn's is that it's not always a continuous stretch of inflammation. It can be patchy.
So it's kind of unpredictable in that way.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so tricky, because the symptoms can vary so much from person to person.
So someone with Crohn's might have very different symptoms from someone else with Crohn's.
Exactly. One person might have some mild discomfort, and another person might be dealing with, severe pain, maybe even complications.
It really highlights how complex this condition can be.
Definitely.
Okay, so we've got Crohn's, which is sort of this unpredictable player. What about ulcerative colitis? How does it usually make its presence known?
Ulcerative colitis is a little bit more, I guess you could say, it likes to stay put. It usually affects the colon and the rectum.
So it's a bit more localized.
Exactly. But where it does set up shop, the inflammation is continuous.
So there's a different pattern of inflammation from Crohn's.
Yeah. And it usually starts in the rectum and then can kind of move upwards from there.
Interesting. So different areas, different patterns of inflammation, but regardless of the type of IBD we're talking about, it sounds like it can have a pretty significant impact on someone's life.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not just like a little tummy trouble here and there.
No, not at all. We're talking, persistent diarrhea, abdominal pain, and just feeling completely wiped out. All of these things can really affect your quality of life.
Yeah. And it's not just the physical symptoms, right? It's also how it affects your ability to, work, socialize, live your life to the fullest.
Exactly. You got it.
It's a really important reminder that we're not just talking about abstract concepts here. This is about real people facing some really challenging circumstances.
Yeah.
And that leads us to, I think, a really fascinating piece of the puzzle, something that's been getting a lot of attention in the world of gut health.
You're talking about the gut microbiota.
The gut microbiota. This is where things get really, really interesting for me.
Yeah.
We're talking trillions of bacteria, fungi, viruses, all coexisting within us. It's like this entire microscopic universe.
Right.
And we're only just starting to really understand how it all works. But I think before we get lost in the cosmos here, let's take a step back. What exactly is the gut microbiota, and why should we care so much about these tiny tenants that are living inside of us?
It really is like a whole world in there, isn't it?
Yeah.
A whole ecosystem. And like any ecosystem, diversity is key.
Okay, I like where you're going with this. But it's more than just a pretty picture. Hey, what are all these microscopic critters actually doing in there?
Oh, they are busy, busy bees, let me tell you.
Yeah.
We're talking trillions of bacteria, fungi, viruses, and they all have their own roles to play. Breaking down food, helping us absorb nutrients.
Right.
Even producing certain vitamins.
Oh, wow. What kind of vitamins are we talking?
Some of the B vitamins, vitamin K, they're like little vitamin factories in there.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So they're helping us get what we need from our food. They're making vitamins. You also mentioned something about the immune system earlier.
Yeah, that's a big one. So a huge part of your immune system actually lives in your gut. Yeah. It's like it's where your immune cells kind of learn the ropes,
Yeah.
figure out what's a threat and what's not.
Okay.
And the gut microbiota plays a big part in that whole training process.
So a well-trained immune system,
Ah.
thanks to our gut buddies, I mean, that's pretty wild. Makes you realize how important it is when things get out of whack down there. And that's where I think that term dysbiosis comes in, right?
Exactly. Dysbiosis,
Yeah.
it's basically when that delicate balance in your gut gets thrown off.
Hmm.
Remember we were talking about the rainforest?
Yeah.
Imagine if, like, one species suddenly started taking over, or a bunch of new ones showed up that weren't supposed to be there.
Okay. Yeah. Chaos.
Exactly.
Mm.
That's kind of what happens with dysbiosis. You lose that diversity,
Mhm.
that balance, things get messed up.
And this isn't just some random thing that happens, right? This dysbiosis, it's actually linked to IBD.
You got it. We're still figuring out all the details, but there's more and more evidence that this imbalance in the gut microbiota could be a big part of what causes IBD.
Okay, so walk me through that. How does an imbalance in these microscopic things actually lead to something like inflammation?
So one theory is that when you have dysbiosis, it can weaken your gut barrier.
Yeah, gut barrier. What's that?
So your gut, it's lined with this incredibly thin layer of cells that acts as a barrier between, everything in your gut and the rest of your body.
Okay, yeah.
And when it's working properly, it's very selective about what gets through, right? Keeps the good stuff in, the bad stuff out.
Makes sense.
But when you have dysbiosis, it's like that barrier gets kind of leaky. Things that shouldn't be crossing over, they can step through.
Oh, no, and I'm guessing our bodies don't like that very much.
Not one bit. Your immune system sees these foreign invaders and it's like, red alert, we've got a situation. And that triggers inflammation.
To fight them off.
Exactly. The problem is with IBD, that inflammatory response, it just doesn't quit. It's like it gets stuck in overdrive even when there's nothing to fight off.
So it's not just that things are out of whack in the gut, it's that your body starts attacking itself.
That's one way to think about it, yeah. And the research you sent over, it actually went into some pretty interesting specifics about how the gut microbiota is different in people with IBD.
It did, yeah. Something about, less diversity and specific types of bacteria being reduced. I was hoping you could break that down for us.
Yeah, it mentioned that people with IBD often have less diversity in their gut bacteria overall. And it also talked about specific types being reduced, like firmicutes and bacteroidetes. Those names ring a bell, but remind me, what's their role again?
So those are actually genus names. Imagine the Smith or Jones in the bacterial world.
Okay, yeah.
And under each of those names, you have tons of different species, and a lot of them are really good for your gut, like the good guys keeping everything running smoothly. Got it. So less of them definitely isn't what you want if you're trying to keep your gut happy. Which brings us to what I feel like is the hope at the end of this tunnel. Probiotics. It seems like they're everywhere these days. Yogurt, kombucha, even chocolate. I'm guessing it's a bit more nuanced than just trendy foods, though, right?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of hype out there. It's important to separate, what's actually backed by science and what's just marketing.
Exactly. So let's break it down. What are probiotics in the context of all this, and how do they fit into the IBD picture?
Probiotics, they're basically live microorganisms, like
Yeah.
good bacteria, good yeasts, that when you eat enough of them, they can actually have a positive effect on your health.
So it's like giving your gut a boost of the good guys, right?
Yeah.
Sending in reinforcement.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Remember we talked about dysbiosis, that imbalance?
Yeah.
Probiotics, the hope is that by introducing these beneficial microorganisms, they can help kind of rebalance things, create a healthier environment in your gut.
Okay, I see the logic there. But specifically when we're talking about IBD, are we talking about actually treating the condition with probiotics, or is it more complicated than that?
It's definitely more nuanced. Probiotics aren't a magic bullet for IBD.
Right.
They're not going to, replace medication or surgery if that's what's needed. But, and this is where the research is really interesting, they might help manage the symptoms, make life a little bit easier for people who are dealing with IBD.
So not a cure, but potentially a really valuable tool in the toolkit.
Exactly.
How are they actually doing that? What's going on there?
So there are a few ways they might be helping. One is by strengthening that gut barrier we were talking about.
Okay, yeah, the leaky gut. Right.
Exactly. Probiotics, they can actually help seal up those leaks, reinforce that barrier, and hopefully prevent some of that, stuff that shouldn't be getting through from actually getting through.
Less leaky gut, less chance of the immune system going haywire. Makes sense. What else are these little guys capable of?
So there's also some research that suggests they can actually modulate, kind of adjust your immune response a bit.
Interesting. So instead of just being stuck on high alert all the time.
Exactly. Probiotics might be able to kind of, calm things down a bit, reduce some of that excess inflammation.
It's like they're teaching our bodies to relax a little. And I know the research mentioned something about probiotics actually producing substances that can fight off bad bacteria. What's the deal with that?
Yeah, so some probiotics, they actually release these substances, antimicrobial substances, that can actually fight off the harmful bacteria in your gut.
Oh, wow.
They're like little warriors in there fighting the good fight.
Talk about having your back. This is all super promising, but you know me, I'm always wondering about the catch. So is it really as simple as just like picking any probiotic off the shelf and calling it a day?
I wish it were that easy. It would be great if it were that easy, but unfortunately, it's not always so straightforward.
Okay, so what do people need to keep in mind?
The effectiveness of probiotics, it can really vary from person to person. It depends on what type of IBD you have, the specific strains of probiotics you're taking, how much you're taking, even just your own individual gut microbiota.
So what works for one person might not work for another.
Exactly. And that's why it's so crucial, especially if you're thinking about using probiotics for IBD, to work with a healthcare provider, a doctor, somebody who knows their stuff. They can help you figure out, is this even right for me? And if so, what strains, what dosages, all of that.
It's a personalized medicine for your gut almost.
Exactly.
Well, this has been fascinating. It's really incredible to think about all these microscopic things going on inside of us that can have such a big impact on our health. But I always want to make sure we bring it back to our listeners. So if you're out there listening, trying to make sense of all this, what are the key takeaways you want people to walk away with?
I think the biggest thing to remember is that IBD is complex. There's no one-size-fits-all solution. And while probiotics are really promising, they're not a cure. They're a piece of the puzzle, something to maybe use alongside, whatever treatment plan you and your doctor decide on.
Working with your body, not against it.
Exactly. And because everybody's different, everybody's gut is different, that's where, having a healthcare provider to guide you is so important.
Absolutely. It's a team effort. This whole conversation has got me thinking the research we talked about, it was mostly focused on using probiotics as a complementary tool, something to use with existing treatments. But what if, down the road, research unlocks even more targeted, personalized probiotic therapies? Treatments that are tailored to a person's unique gut microbiota and their specific condition.
Oh man, that would be amazing. The possibilities are really exciting. I mean, who knows what the future holds, right? But with all the research that's being done, I think there's a lot of hope for even more effective, more personalized treatments down the line.
It's a hopeful thought for sure, and I think that's a perfect note to end on. Listener, we hope this deep dive has given you a clearer, maybe even a little bit of a new, understanding of probiotics and their potential role in IBD. It's a field that's constantly evolving, so stay curious, keep learning, and as always, thanks for taking the plunge with us.